I drive my car up to the lake as if there's someone to awake. I haven't been to bed for days, I live in a twilight haze. And I set my heart to the setting sun, and I hope that no one else has done it. And the drinks are never far, open up the bar. I miss you every single day. I wait until I stop your way. I hate the way I stray.
I did fly a little Cessna once upon a time as well.
And you were driving?
Well,
you were in it?
Yeah, I got invited along. There was a young student who, young Indian guy, I don't recall his name, but I was a little bit mashed for that one as well, and he just said, take the controls and have a wee fly around.
Yeah.
And yeah, it did. It was cool.
Awesome. It's good times, though.
Yeah. All right, so, hey, now your business is called Studio3.
I am called Studio3, that's right.
Yep, and thanks for coming in today, Rob, super early. Now, landscape architecture, how did you get into it?
Well, I'd love to say that it was one of those things, you know, like you talk to other people I work with in the architecture industry and they're like, I knew from when I was young playing Lego and all this, that's what I was going to do, but it wasn't the case at all for me.
Those bloody architects, they always talk about Lego.
Oh, no, Lego and creating things and all that sort of stuff.
There were some trees in Lego though, so...
There were some trees, but I wasn't really a Lego guy, but I think I was pretty... I don't really know what I wanted to do, mate, to be honest. So I finished school and then I think I was planning on getting a builder's apprenticeship or being a signwriter or doing something graphic like that, and then nothing really came up. And then a mate of mine was going to Lincoln to study viticulture and enology, which is winemaking and grape growing. And it was the first year that offered that sort of course, so I was like, I'll go have it sounds like pretty good fun. It's, you know, growing grapes and making wine. That could be a great way to sort of get into things, but
stay engaged. Yeah.
At the end of the day, though, it was pretty much all chemistry. And
I see. Yep.
And when I was at school, I did chemistry once, and I got given like a box of crayons and some paper, and just drew the periodic table for the term. And that was pretty much my extent of chemical balancing. So, but while I was at Lincoln, I saw some people who were doing the landscape architecture sort of undergrad degree. Sorry. And that was when I sort of thought, that looks pretty interesting. You know, I was always been pretty handy at drawing, loved sort of creating and designing, and a bit of a nature boy as well, so gave it a go, and then that was that. And that was sort of a 4-year, well, it ended up being 5 years at Lincoln, but that was kind of what and how I got into it. Yeah. And then I think if it hadn't have been probably my last exam in my last year, I had a phone call from a guy down in Queenstown just sort of saying, look, I've got a bit of work, someone's had an accident, can you come down and do a few weeks' work? And that kind of turned into a couple of years and was almost my springboard.
Wow.
And it was a really good opportunity. If it hadn't been for that, I probably wouldn't, I don't know what if I would have carried on or where I would have gone. It was kind of just the ultimate sort of start to things for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was kind of that, and that was, I don't know, 18 years ago now, 19 years. And that's getting
into things pretty quick though. That's not...
Yeah, it was kind of thrown in at the deep end for sure. Here's Paddy Baxter, he's pretty classic guy. He was a pretty awesome boss to have, sort of first job sort of thing.
Brilliant.
And I'd never even been to Queenstown. I just drove down there and sort of ran into a mate and stayed on his couch, and that turned into what it did. And but the work I was doing was great. You know, it was sort of he'd sort of given me pretty high responsibility for someone who was sort of pretty fresh off the boat, and then getting to sort of run projects and get a bit of leeway into the sort of design side just a little bit. And then
did you ever get your kind of hands in there, sort of
physically doing the construction side? I kind of always done a lot of that type of stuff with my dad and with just sort of growing up, and that sort of thing was kind of, that was why I was sort of looking at building and stuff like that. But,
I see.
But when I went to Australia many moons later, well, not many moons later, but a few years later, I just sort of had a bit of a break and jumped back on the tools, because it's kind of nice to, there's one thing to draw paving or draw detail or draw something, but it's another thing to know actually how to do it, and having that practical sort of knowledge of how things, if you draw something, knowing it can actually be done is probably quite a handy thing.
100%. I mean, obviously the Polytech, all of the drafting students always used to actually build a house, didn't they? Or a little something or other.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's key, I reckon. So having that little bit of practical background is pretty good. So I've always tried to dabble in and out of, well, my early career anyway, sort of had a few months off here and there and would go and just do a bit of building or do something like that.
Yeah.
And that was kind of useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was all kind of Queenstown based, and then you came back to Christchurch and sort of got stuck into work up here, or
I didn't actually. I was down that way and I met my now wife.
Yep.
And she was sort of cruising around the world doing her thing, and then I was sort of making noise about going overseas and going and doing the whole OE thing. But she sort of gave me a bit of a kick up the bum and said, you should come over. So at the time, though, you needed to have like $6,000 to get a visa for England. I don't know if you remember that. You remember when you used to...
I didn't go to the UK, no.
Right.
And plus, I've got an English passport.
Oh,
would I?
perfect.
Yeah.
You would have been sweet.
Is that right?
Yeah.
$6,000?
So you
just
need
in
to
the
have,
bank account?
Yeah, you need to have like
yeah.
proof of $6,000 so that you can say, I can support myself when I get here. But I didn't have $6,000. No way. I was spending everything I could earn as fast as I could. But you only needed $2,000 to get to Ireland. So one of my best mates is an Irishman, and he was living in Dublin. So I just snuck into Dublin and ended up working on a building site with him, and just sort of travelling around Dublin and Ireland for the best part of sort of 8 months.
Yeah.
And then sneaking over to the UK from there.
Nice one.
And then I worked in the UK for about 3 years as well.
Yeah.
And that was kind of interesting because that was a bit of an eye-opener coming from sort of Queenstown, New Zealand, beautiful, big open spaces and relatively small population, and into working into massively complicated, complex sort of public space with, all sorts of different cultural sort of values and higher population densities and stuff.
Yeah.
And having to sort of think about that in design was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So I was just sort of working on a contract basis for a couple of companies there, off and on over the course of 3 years, and that was really good. That was really interesting. Yeah.
Did you make some like hard out discoveries of what kind of energized you back then? Like, was that like, whoa, this is where it's at, and you're kind of
I think so. Yeah, I mean, like, what the ultimate discovery straight away was how much I missed home and the big open spaces. It was such a change. But then once I sort of just had that mind shift of I'm here and this is where I'm going to be and I'm going to just embrace it. That was awesome. And then just things like public transport and seeing how efficient all that stuff is, and the importance of public space to people's livelihoods when you don't have backyards or you don't have big sort of sections that we're lucky enough to have here in NZ. And just really thinking about how critical public space is to sort of day-to-day life was really a bit of an eye-opener at the time. And just, that cultural thing as well, having to think about what's important to not just, one set of values, but multiple different sort of backgrounds and stuff as well.
True. So you don't want to come in there and just smash out something which isn't going to be appreciated or utilised or
insensitive, or it could be something that's not appropriate for the demographic and stuff like that. So I did a few little sort of housing schemes in places that were, predominantly of one sort of flavour or another, and getting to meet people and talk to people and find out what was important to them was like, well, I didn't even really think of that. So
true.
That was kind of cool to have that experience as well.
Yeah, flip.
Yeah. So that was kind of nice, and it was the problem was sort of big projects in big cities take a long, long time. So I wasn't able to see a lot of my projects through. I wasn't there for long enough, really. So I'd love to go back now, 20 years later or whatever it is, or not 20, and see if many of those things have come to fruition. So
Google Earth.
Google Earth's quite handy. Yeah.
Let's go walking down those streets.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Street view. Have a wee look around.
Yeah. So that was probably the best part of 2.5, 3 years in England. Yeah. And then we decided to take a pit stop at Sydney on the way home, and that turned into sort of 4 years in Sydney as well, which was awesome. Loved it. Loved living in Oz. That was pretty cool. We had a pretty big sort of community over there, and
cool.
I worked for the same company the whole time. I think I said before I took a bit of time out and did some construction work, and that was kind of cool. Sort of getting back on the tools and laying a few pavers and building a few walls and getting a bit more familiar with some planting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And worked on quite a few sort of large sort of offshore Chinese big sort of design projects, which was kind of interesting, but kind of not really what I wanted to be doing,
So where was that? So where was the actual project?
Well, there was multiple. So the company I worked for had offices in Brisbane and Sydney, but they had some in Shanghai and Dubai as well.
Yeah, I see.
And they was kind of doing a lot of the, if you look at a plan, it would be like a whole bunch of sort of lozenge shapes, and each of them was like, 15 to 20 story resi blocks for. Yeah. But it was almost like if you drew one scheme and put it up next to the next one, it would almost just be a continuation. It wasn't really meaningful enough for me, especially when you don't really get to go to the site or understand the culture or do any of that. No. So it was kind of just punching out big projects, and they'd be like, we want a Parisian style thing, so you'd do.
Flip.
So that was kind of weird, but
wow, that's a little bit against possibly what you kind of experienced in the UK.
Yeah. And against everything I was kind of hoping to be doing more of, which is unlocking sort of place a bit more. Yeah,
I see.
Yeah. But it was still a really good experience because it was quite big scale, and I was balancing that out with a bit of local sort of public realm work in Sydney and stuff like that, and some housing stuff too. So so that was pretty cool.
And then were you here for the wonderful Christchurch earthquakes?
Mate, we had great timing, So my son Lennox was born in Manly, and then we moved home about 4 weeks before the first quake. So that was pretty funny. I told my wife T that we moved back to Christchurch. It's pretty cruisy. There's not much going on. It's going to be pretty relaxed. Yeah. And then we bought a little shack out in Sumner, and I still remember all of that pretty clearly. Actually, it was pretty nuts.
Yeah, with a little baby.
Were you here for all of that as well?
Yeah, I was. Yep. I was sort of living in Maryvale and working in the central city. Yep. Yeah, so it was crazy times. Yeah, it was a lifetime ago in some respects. Yeah. Yesterday especially, I noticed how freaking quiet it is in the central city. Obviously, we've got the whole COVID thing going on, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But man, it's just a ghost town. Yeah. And even the last 3.5, 4 years that we've been in business, it's still a ghost town. And then COVID came along and took everyone away again. But, the day of the February quake, there were just... Obviously, everyone came out of their buildings at the same time. But, there were scores of people on the streets. Yeah. Like, even just a normal lunch hour... you would be walking down a street in Christchurch and sort of sidestepping people. That was just normal because you live in a city, right? Yeah. But now it's just non-existent to a certain degree. Which is quite bizarre.
It is bizarre. There's kind of pockets every now and then where you think, it's really feeling good and it's starting to come back. But then it was sort of, like you said, then the next day you're like, oh, hang on a minute, what happened? It's quiet again today.
Yeah. It's an unruly beast. I don't know how much... Like, sometimes I kind of am a little bit critical about how it's all been dealt, and how it's progressed and who's responsible and this, that and the other. But I don't know. It's kind of I don't feel like they have much control, like perhaps the city council or such and such group or this group. I don't know. I know they do campaigns and stuff like that to try and bring people back, but it doesn't seem to result in too much...
Yeah, it's kind of a population thing, and I mean, I don't know. Like, I look at a lot of the sort of city making stuff, and as part of kind of what I've been working on in the last few years, and a lot of people generally move at like 5k now. Cities are built at 5k now, so that means the scale of things is generally legible when you're walking and things like that. And we've kind of rushed into this. We've got to rebuild quick. So, it's. Things take a bit of time, and I just think it's going to take a bit more time before we start seeing some of that grit and grain and that sort of stuff that we used to have.
I think I agree. The cross section of society doesn't really exist as much. Like, we get a lot of office workers and people come to the city basically because they work there, but we don't have that massive cross section. Yeah. Hey, Milton.
Morning, mate. How you going? Flat tyre this morning, mate.
Yeah. Real tricky situation to try and get it fixed.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Oh, bugger.
Did you get under the car and get it all done?
Yeah.
But
Morning.
Morning.
Yeah, there's just a whole bunch of factors, like the road was on a wet camber.
Yep.
And I've got a van where you've got to have the bracket underneath the car that holds the tyre. And you have to screw it down.
Yep.
I screwed it down, but I couldn't get the tyre out because the road's on a wet camber. Anyway, just a whole bunch of events keep carrying on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because normally I would change a tyre pretty quick.
Yeah.
Not this morning.
Not this morning.
Yeah.
Did you have a head torch on, or were you using the iPhone?
Well, I had a head torch, but the batteries were virtually flat.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so then I like grab my phone out and like just a whole bunch of little factors added up to like half an hour. Yeah,
That's a perfect start to your day.
yeah. No, it's all good. It's
good.
interesting.
Oh, you're looking happy now, mate. That's the main thing.
Well, I could have just driven here on the rim, but
Yep.
I didn't want to fuck the tyre up too bad. So
It would have been a great way to sort of blaze in down here with sparks flying, though, wouldn't it? You know, pull a handbrake and
It's a win-win, right?
it is.
Total win-win. Right, I better set up the scones.
Do your thing, mate. Do your thing.
Yeah, cool. Cheers, Martin. Yeah. We were just talking about the central city and how ridiculous it is. But I mean, yeah, I agree, and it's going to take time. And it's not that 2 years that everyone says every 2 years or every day someone says, oh, it'll just take another couple of years.
Yeah.
It's freaking 10, 15, 20 years that it's going to take to really soak in. What's that?
Yeah,
That's just started.
They were saying...
Oh, that's the bloody rubbish bin.
Oh, is that what it is?
yeah, they were saying
really
that
good.
right just after the earthquake, so it's going to be 3, maybe 5 years.
Yeah.
All this, it's looking like 20,
Yeah, I reckon, and I mean...
which is fine, I guess.
Yeah. It's kind of a design, the new city, or we're sort of living in this place that's kind of for the next generation, really. I think that our kids are going to benefit from this big time.
Yeah.
They're going to have this amazing, cool, compact, vibrant city, which is going to be great.
Yeah.
But we just have to mash through it a wee bit ourselves.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's crazy, eh? The whole brand new libraries, brand new facilities for everything.
Yeah.
It is pretty phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it's just kind of
It's just a bit sort of piecemeal, like you said. There's some bits and pieces, and I guess some of the work I've been doing is sort of looking beyond that, and and I've sort of been lucky enough to sort of see what the bigger picture is and sort of understand how it's all going to come together. But I think a lot of people haven't had that sort of revealed and can't put that together, and like, well, hang on a minute, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? When you could just be doing that, but there's probably a lot more to it than just just doing one little bit in
so
isolation.
a lot of your work involves the central city at the moment, or
well, it has done up until the last few years. So I've worked on some of the large sort of streetscape projects in the central city. So I worked on sort of Durham, Cambridge Street, Manchester Street, parts around the hospital, around between the hospital and the new outpatients building, the Oxford Gap, the South Frame, which is the new laneway system all over here, all the courtyards outside Little High, and Ducks Central. So that was all part of the work I've been doing. And that's probably a classic example of some of that stuff that's been done, and people going, "What are we doing this for?" You know, there's nothing here, but
it's kind of like an island.
Yeah, well, that's right, and like the South Frame's a classic one because it's kind of interesting down this end because you've got we've got a bit of critical mass now with Little High. That's been brilliant. And there's some little laneways, and you sort of can cruise around there and go, "Oh yeah, this is feeling pretty good," and then you kind of go to the next block down, that's car yards and empty sections, and you're like, "Oh, what's the point of this?" But I think hopefully in time what we need is just more things hemming that in, and then that leftover space that we've already created becomes your interesting little lanes and your little pockets and your little places within the city.
So there is still like an overall plan.
That's a good question.
or is it kind of like, how does that kind of they did kind of bring in that whole frame system.
Yeah, that was part of those.
And then different
projects.
property developers, are they allowed to kind of put their spin on it, or do they?
Yeah, there was kind of these interesting rules that came out when the blueprint was released. I mean, I didn't have anything to do with that, but that meant that only the real big dogs could cruise in and be able to justify building, because you had to have half of a bloody city block to develop on and things like that. And that ruled out a lot of the smaller sort of operators, and that was a real shame, because. And the costs, like we were talking about before, the cost of building and the cost of everything these days, just blew
it would sort of take away the sense of community and everyone rocking together, right?
Yeah, that's right. And inhabiting an old building and all coming together and having a shared brick wall or something like that. It was kind of big glassy new buildings that cost a fortune. That you're like, well, hang on a minute, this doesn't really suit what I'm trying to do, or that sort of thing. So that was probably. I think that's been a real shame to sort of lose all of those little parts of a city. We have a little skate shop and next to that someone who's cutting keys and a little cobbler, and it's like where's that?
Yeah,
gone?
I don't know. Yeah, I've often wondered about that as well, and that is the kind of the grit and the grime, or the kind of that kind of, I don't know whether it holds it together, but it certainly gives you this kind of a much more kind of cross section,
diversity,
diversity, and stuff.
Makes it interesting.
Yeah,
like when I go to Melbourne, it's like I love all the nooks and the alleyways that you're talking about.
Yeah,
or like the other day I went to the Austin Club.
Oh yeah,
it's just down an alleyway.
In that lane over here.
Yeah, in that lane. But it's it's just cool going down this shitty lane. And there's a doorway at the end.
Yeah.
You sort of go down there. But but when everything is like an urban monoculture. Yeah. I mean, our brains just don't like that.
No.
We're not designed for that.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, there's some awesome looking buildings, but I love the little brick stuff and all the alleyways and stuff.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That was kind of like Melbourne was like, when we were starting to look at some of the lanes around here, Melbourne was fully the go-to for inspiration and sort of precedent for that. But they're lucky enough to have those old buildings and that sort of a bit more population, a bit of height, a bit of density, and that sort of thing. Was where we were sort of starting from scratch and going.
I suppose nature's kind of similar. You get the big trees, and then you get all of the little stuff, the little growth, all growing back in there.
Yep.
And perhaps it's just I don't know what comes first. It may be hard to just suddenly just add water and get the whole lot at once. But I think it will happen over time. Won't it? I mean, it will have to. Yeah.
Hopefully.
Otherwise, we're kind of like looking at we're looking at it just sort of almost another, because if those cracks don't exist and there isn't that opportunity, it won't thrive, will it?
Yeah,
because there has to be that almost that symbiotic kind of relationship between the big things and the small. Yeah.
Have we talked about surfing yet?
No, we haven't got to that yet.
Oh, okay.
That could derail everything.
It do.
But it's interesting because I've been working down in Dunedin. That's my main project. So I'm sort of I've started my own business, Studio3, but I'm still doing some contract work back with Jazzmax still. Yep. And my main project I'm working on there is just the Dunedin George Street redesign.
Yeah.
And we're just talking about grain and all that, and that's brilliant. That's so cool because Dunedin's an awesome city. It's so cool. It's kind of small. You can be walking along George Street, doing a bit of shopping and grabbing a coffee or whatever, and then 10 minutes later getting chased by a sea lion along the beach, in this amazing landscape. It's a really cool place with heaps of colourful people. It's got the classic bum dude that you see every day cruising past, and it's awesome, But that's kind of got that. It's fortunate enough to have these beautiful buildings. It's got that fine grain, and it hasn't had the life sucked out of the main street by the suburban malls either. George Street itself is kind of got the malls built into it, but it still gives you a reason to come into town. It's kind of interesting. Whereas you think of old Colombo and Manchester and those streets. That's just gone. It's decimated, which is a real shame. High Street, it's the classic one as well. So I've no doubt that it's awesome, but it's just going to take a bit more time. Yeah.
So your objective when you're looking at spaces like that, the outside spaces, are you wanting people to, are you just kind of wanting people to walk past and kind of? Well, is a job well done for you? What does that look like?
Job well done is when people spend more time in public space. I forget who said it recently, but good public realm, and public realm's just that in its broader sense is urban space that's sort of in between the buildings. It's the streets, it's the public spaces, that sort of stuff. So good public ground's almost your best anchor tenant, because if you've got people hanging out, catching up for a cuppa because we've put in a perfectly positioned sunny north facing table that you can share your fish and chips with, then you might end up going in and buying that t-shirt and then wandering down the street a bit further and doing something else. So if you can have people spend more time in the public space in the city, that's got to be a good thing,
Oh, totally.
As opposed to just hooning through in your car. You can't get a park, which is the classic. Like my mum is the classic one. Like she's like, I can never get a park in here. It's like, well, you can't just expect to park outside the front door and just walk in. That's some classic thinking. But if you can get people in, cruising through the public space, hanging out, spending time, that's got to be good for the people who are running businesses in the area too.
Because at the moment, I know people, they've probably got like an ideation of what town's like.
Yep.
And they're like, oh God, I don't want to go there. Yep. So what we need is energy and connectivity. It's like, oh, let's go to that funky little park
Yeah.
in the middle of town, right?
Yeah.
Kind of a no-brainer.
Yep, for sure. And providing like multitudes of use as well, So with the Dunedin project, it's all about sort of, there might be the octagon's hanging out really. Well, that's the big sort of central space. Like we've got the square, which is which is massively too big for our population, but that's another whole conversation. But the octagon's where you're going to have your big sort of stuff. But then there's no reason why George Street can't host smaller things and other things, and putting just little things like putting power boxes in, water feeds, having the opportunities to be able to plug and play and that sort of thing is kind of interesting. And take it away from being a big asphalt highway with no plants and a couple of trees to balancing out. You can still get down there, you can still park. You might have to go a bit slower, but the space is much more for people, and cyclists and people wanting to hang out in the space without just being in a boring old asphalt curb and channel. So
that's one of the age-old things, especially in Christchurch, is about the driving and about the walking and about the parking and crap like that. And I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it myself. I mean, but they kind of talk about it, and then they talk about Europe, and everyone walks and bikes and stuff like that. And it's kind of like, but
Christchurch is a bit different, and I hear exactly what you're saying, mate. Because I mean, there's an ideology of everyone's going to be biking everywhere, but it's like,
it does need to work for the people.
I live in Sumner, mate.
Right?
I'm not going to bike in here every day. As simple as that. Hit that nor'easter on the causeway, and I'm going, damn. Just the sprawling nature of Christchurch means that people are just so heavily reliant on their cars. But it'd be nice to if one person decides to bike in that day, that's one more car parking space for you if you're driving. So it's just little wins as well. And
that's right. And I think if we can, like the general public, can be shown, or I can be shown that things can be better and more enjoyable in a different way. I mean, there's no reason why I wouldn't actually engage with that and stuff and think about it
for sure.
more thoughtfully. But I think, I don't know, I guess we're just lazy in all kind of aspects, but
and it's just it's a bit of trial and error as well. I think everyone looks at that classic Copenhagen model of going, how lucky are they? But it's they've been doing that for a long time.
That's right. It hasn't just
the bike.
Biking.
The bikeness, is it sort of based on the Copenhagen sort of style?
Yeah, a lot of it is. That European model, and it's awesome. It's great.
Oh no, that's awesome.
It's kind of different layout, different sort of culture, and it's just trying to sort of encourage a bit more options, I suppose. And if there's options for people as they get older and grow into it, then it's not just a built-in mindset of I have to drive there. It might be I can actually get a bus and walk and grab a coffee from Pilgrim and roll in from there. So.
And because change kind of takes time in this context, it's sort of it is a generational thing. Like it is, we are talking about our kids and stuff. So it is something.
There's a classic
that can actually change.
There's a guy called Jan Gehl, and he's like a real famous sort of urban design guy, and he's got this quote. It's like people take time to develop new habits, and it's really true because even some of the work we've done here in the streets have been hugely controversial, and people are going, "What the fuck they do that for? It's terrible." Yeah. But then 6 months later. Have you been down there? It's beautiful. We've seen those. The planting beds looking great. It's like, cool. You remember what you said 6 months ago? Because I was about to get my head cut off, So it's kind of hard.
We mob.
The pitchforks come out hard, and that sort of thing. But
it's so easy to be doing that.
Big time. I do it myself, and I'm who did that? Oh shit, I might have had something to do with that. So But no, it's good. Keeps it interesting, that's for sure.
So what are some of the barriers to getting your job done, like achieving your kind of goals?
Budget's always a huge one, mate. Like end of the day, there's only X amount of money to spend, and it depends on the project. Like talking about public realm, it's been kind of different because there's often just a set budget, and that's put aside for that work. When I do sort of private sort of commercial project or a resi project or something like that, a lot of the money gets spent in the build and the unforeseen things that come up, and then exactly. I might have drawn up a plan and said that's awesome, that's what we want to do, but can we do it for half the price? And it's like, well, not really. So budget's always a massive constraint. And then there's just
is that a tactic? Like, do you think they go into it knowing they're going to pull that out?
I think a lot of people go into it thinking they're going to be able to do it this time.
Yeah.
Perhaps for the first time, or for the 5th time or the 20th time, thinking, "Oh no, I'm going to nail it this time." But there's just always stuff that pops up. Hey,
but it's I mean, budget should be first and foremost. Like,
yeah.
Just turn around afterwards and say, "Can we do it for half?"
Yeah. It's tricky. So that's often a challenge though in its own right, and I often see things like that as opportunities because if you've got a design that's going to still make sense, even if you have to strip out this and that and substitute it for something else, and the geometry is good and the spaces feel good and it's proportionally right. Yeah, and you can only afford to do some small amount of planting whatever else, but it still feels good. Yeah, you can build on that in time, and as long as you get that sort of initial proportions sort of right and the spatial sort of awareness. But that's a challenge in its own right as well. Yeah. So it's kind of varies from project to project.
I mean, obviously, for the average layperson, you just hear people bitching about the council and this, that, and the other, and you only hear the bad kind of stories. Do you deal with a lot of that kind of consent kind of process?
Thankfully, at the moment, with a lot of my work, I don't have to deal with that. There's either someone dealing with it specifically. Yeah. I'll probably do more of that in my own smaller stuff, some of the consenting work when I'm doing some smaller resi work or whatever for Studio3. But in a lot of the bigger work, I haven't had to deal with that sort of directly, which is kind of cool because that's a big sort of mountain to climb.
Are there, like, when you're designing a space, are there a lot of kind of things in your head going, okay, or like are there certain things that you're thinking about, okay, sweet, we're in this zone, I can't do this, I can't do that, I have to be thoughtful of these parameters, I guess.
For every design for me is place based, so I'll look at perhaps not around the restrictions or the constraints. I'll look at sort of what is the classic one is just where's the sun and where's the prevailing winds and how can I maximise some sun and minimise the wind and things like that, and then planting species. A lot of the work we've done over here and some of the laneways, we looked at all the ecosystem maps of pre sort of settlement mapping,
right.
So
that's going back a long way.
Yeah, there's this woman, Di Lucas, who did these amazing maps, and they're basically like these big heat maps that sort of talk about the Totara ecosystem and then all the different ecosystems. And within that, she's identified what species would be found in those. So a lot of our plant choices are based on, well, we know that's what sort of was here. So we've developed soil types that actually support those plants, and then trying to bring, and some of that stuff doesn't, for the public eye, might go, that's a bit messy, but it's like, well, that's actually is of this place. So
that's a bit of the history kind of popping back up through the asphalt.
Yeah, and that's again intense. That legacy stuff too. So like planting species that might, in the short term, think, there's not much here, and then 20 years later, go, oh shit, where'd this come from? This is awesome, and you've created something that's sort of a bit of a legacy. So it's designing with time a wee bit as well. Which is kind of tricky because landscape always looks its worst on day one, and buildings always look their best, and they sort of come back in 10 years and have another look and go, oh shit, it's really settled in and feeling good. So material choices for me are all about using as much as you can locally sourced. So basalt from here and trying to dig out really nice stone from quarries and things like that, and timbers have to be sustainably harvested, and all of those material choices are quite important, I think, to create a sense of place too, because you don't want a place to feel like it's downtown Auckland when you're standing in Central Otago. You want to have a place that feels like it's of its environment.
Classic. And I mean, the easiest way to do that is use the local resources.
Responding to context and things like that. So that's always really, really important.
Because that's why I like going to Oamaru or something. It's like, man, it's just a cool, funky little place. Yeah. Because it just no other place is like that.
Yeah, right? For sure. Yep. It's really cool. And that's kind of, there's a lot of generic work that gets done, I think, and you could be anywhere, and it's really nice to sometimes sort of stand there and know where you stand. Which is
just cool. Amazed that people have got. Like, if you need it, people have got all this specialised knowledge about stuff. Like the guy, like Young Gal mentioned, like he sounds pretty awesome. I'm going to look him up. And the guy with the the plantings and the trees.
Yep.
It's like, man, this dude's worked all this out.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. There's some really amazing resource out there to tap into for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
And how does the because you can't. So, but you're also thinking about what's happening in the present, what's happening in the future. Just chucking something out there like skateboarders or something.
Yep.
Like, how do you ever factor in like, okay, there's going to be a little gang of skateboarders
fully
come along here, and you want them to kind of.
Well,
are they the public enemy? Are they the enemy of?
It's a real interesting one because it's funny you say that because I was having this conversation literally in the last week or so because I love skating. I was shithouse at skating, but I was used to try and ride my skateboard around and then just threw that away and just grabbed a longboard to commute because I couldn't do anything on the other one and broke my wrists. But I think skaters are interesting because they'll often draw and paint lines on a public space that you never thought would be painted. It's like, wow, I never actually imagined that being used for that purpose. So it's kind of interesting and like as noisy and as potentially distracting as they can be to adjacent stakeholders, they bring life and vibrancy into a space. Like Martin Place in Sydney is a classic one where there's that sort of slight gradient. There's this little level change. And there's just guys hammering it down there, and you end up having big crowds of people just hanging out and watching, because it's something to watch in the public space. But from someone who's perhaps designed the granite edge that they're smacking into every 5 seconds, it's a bit hard to watch. So I think there's got to be a bit of balance, and it's a really hard one to do. Like we're talking about George Street before, we're about to put in all this new sort of street furniture and sort of concrete edges, and a lot of that stuff's going to be perfect copings,
right.
And it's maybe about thinking about, well, where is it we might let that happen,
encourage it,
and where might we sort of try and discourage it, because you don't really want to just say you can't do that because it's
exactly
skating is a real tricky one,
they just interpret they're looking at a landscape and they're interpreting it.
It's great.
You could put metal strips along the coping.
We've talked about that. We talked about do you create a profile radius on the edge of something that's going to be robust enough to handle it? But I don't know about you guys. I think you guys have both obviously done a bit of skating. You got some boards hanging out.
Dave's done like way better than me.
But it's like the one thing that kind of is frustrating is, and it's just practicing, I suppose. But half the time, I'd say 90% of the guys hitting those rails are probably practicing and just jumping, and kicking their board off midway through the trick, and the board just smashes into it. The guys who can actually do it, it's actually not an issue. Because they're actually waxing it and grinding it.
That's right. They use a lot of wax.
90% of the guys are hitting it and just letting their boards fly, and it's just
unfortunately, that's just a part of skateboarding, isn't it? It's like when you switch on YouTube or look at skating or something, you're seeing the finished product, but there's hours of
goes into that.
The fails. We had a competition in the Bordertown ran a skate competition in the car park actually a couple of years ago, and I think people were surprised. Like the customers in here were kind of looking out the window at the kids skating and stuff and trying to pull off these tricks. They were surprised at how few tricks got landed and kind of how many, it's just falling off time after time after time.
But then when it does get landed, everyone's clapping their paws.
It's insane.
It's pumped.
It's great. So,
But we put in a down on the Vodafone building here. There was a little level change, and we had to sort of put a little sort of seat in there so it didn't become a trip hazard and all this sort of stuff, and that just became the perfect edge for skating. So we just put a little Corten steel edge on it. And that was awesome. That worked a treat because it got hit and it was getting waxed and all the rest of it. But then that meant that the platform seats that are all down there, the big sort of curvy ones, were like the perfect things to sort of get your lead on and jump off. So even though they've got deterrence on the edges, the top of them's nice and smooth. So it's like, it's like, well, how do you're better off just trying to work with it than against it in a lot of instances as well,
I reckon, Rob, you might be like just redesigning things a little bit. It's going to be cool. This is going to be cool for skating.
Yeah, definitely. I always think about it.
That little subtle thing will pop in.
Nice little bank or a little berm or something like that.
Well, I mean, you can't design the whole city for a skate park. Imagine that.
That would be quite.
But the energy is great, man.
But I mean, incorporating it. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I got told recently those the metal bars that just pop up and down in the ground were because. I think it was Tom that told me the bollards in cities, like the bollards to kind of stop cars. When they get hit, they end up kind of like that.
Yeah, right.
And skaters started skating on them.
Oh, wow.
And then now they're sort of a feature of street skating.
Yeah, right. Interesting.
Yeah, so that stuff does it's just kind of something happens and it just gets incorporated into the into the landscape.
Yeah, it's cool. I like that.
And the sport.
Yeah, the whole way that's just like I never thought they would be used like that. And
I like the idea of wabi sabi, where it's like the Japanese term. I think it means impermanence, where it's like everything's going to deteriorate.
Yep.
And so it's like if a few edges get messed up, I'm not going to worry too much about that.
Yep. Oh yeah, is that when they glue back their ceramics?
Yeah, and they have cracked teapots. And just saying, no, we're all going to die. Everything's impermanent.
Yeah.
Don't stress out too much if you break something.
Doesn't have to be perfect all the time.
No, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so, it's tricky. It's it's just trying to use again materiality and choices that are robust, and you know they're going to be able to last a bit longer than 6 months down the track having to get replaced.
Yeah, I was just imagining you, Rob, telling your client that everyone's going to die, and it's all impermanent anyway.
But this is going to be here for a bit longer, so so it's our legacy.
Well, all I mean is just sort of maybe lighten up a bit. Obviously, you have areas where you don't want that, but just have some parts where it's like, man, this will skate people go. Yep, this is cool. I mean, we've got just so many things going on. It's just not good having a monoculture.
Yeah, that's true. I think we must just be drawn to that. It's just such a natural sort of like end state, isn't it? It's kind of like that where we just get this whole. Like you look at any city in the world, and there's very few which are there's probably none which are just one thing. That monoculture, So when we get the opportunity to build a city from scratch, virtually, I'm kind of trying to incorporate that from day one.
It's
tricky.
Yeah, well, time will tell, I suppose. Still work to be done, eh?
Yeah. So what are you looking forward to in the next?
What am I looking forward to? Oh well, I guess I just. I was with Jazzmax for 11 years. Like I said, came back just before the quakes, and that was, everything was great. It was a great 10 years. But I just wanted to sort of have a go at just sort of being master of my own destiny a wee bit, And we've sort of talked a lot about the public realm and that type of work, and I want to just diversify and sort of have a chance to work on some smaller stuff, some more diverse work, a lot of the work I've done is specialised in that sort of top end, sort of public realm delivery. But just being a chance to do some smaller, interesting projects that perhaps Jazzmax might not be quite as interested in, and work with different sort of work streams as well. And just drive my own thing. I sort of said so. I lost my dad at the end of last year, and I always said to him that I'd do it. So I managed to sort of get started before he went to sleep, but that was kind of satisfying for me, and just giving it a crack, I figure you might as well. If I don't, 10 years down the track, I'll go, why didn't I have a go at that? And it's been really cool because everything was amicable. There's no issues, and everyone's been pretty good about how it's all gone down. And I'm just looking forward to seeing what the future holds. Really, it's only been a few months for me. Really.
Well, the whole Jazzmax is made up. Like that, Jazzmax's history and founder, or the founding of it, isn't it a whole bunch of
dudes,
or something?
There's a whole.
So presumably, they were just all like, let's get together, guys, and put it together. And
that's right. And then, mainly architectural. As an architectural firm with landscape and urban and interiors and stuff. So, probably limited my opportunities to work with other architects, which is not a bad thing because there's amazingly clever bunch of people that I love working with there. But there's lots out there, lots of opportunity out there. I don't really want to make millions and millions of dollars. It's just that's not going to happen in this industry anyway. But it's all about just enjoying that balance for me. That's kind of what I'm after.
And collaboration.
Collaboration.
Enjoy that.
I love working with people and work really closely with engineers and and all sort of manner of people and talking to the people who are the users of the space and seeing the enjoyment that people get out of that is really rewarding. So it's going to be interesting. It'll be hopefully it all works out for the good. But it's exciting at the same time.
And that's pretty cool. It's pretty intense. I going out on your own is a big step. And
Yeah.
is that not particularly common for landscape architects?
Oh no,
they're quite
plenty.
often in house, or
Yeah. There's plenty of sort of sole traders, small practitioners. Yeah. There is a lot. There's some bigger practices. I'd say Jasmix has got one of the bigger teams nationally, but then there's some other guys locally here, Tony and Danny Carmo, and those guys who've got some pretty good sized practices, and they do really diverse stuff, because landscape's kind of, it's broken into different tranches as well. Like you can do design and delivery is kind of what I've specialised in, but then there's landscape assessment, which is where you come in and you're the expert and you work out what impact a development might have on the landscape and that sort of stuff. So you're almost acting as the spokesman for the landscape. So there's that sort of tranche, which is something I haven't done a lot of. I did a little bit of it in Queenstown. My boss just threw me in the deep end one day and said, "You're going to be the expert witness." And I was like 1 year out and had to go in with an oversized second-hand suit and say to everyone that I was the man, and I was able to tell them that this is what was going to happen, even though it was full of spelling mistakes and things, and he was sitting in the corner laughing at me. It was one of the most biggest baptisms of fire I've ever had. But there's that, and then there's sort of landscape planning and all these other things as well. But just sort of depends what floats your boat. Yeah. But it's just, I just like the creative side of it. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, totally. It's hard out creative.
Yeah.
Hey, here's the menu. I'm going to hand this over to you.
You beauty. Thank you.
I love thinking about the creative thing. I mean, I don't know. I remember meeting a gardener one time who worked in the Botanic Gardens. And she was just... Like, she was a true gardener.
Like a botanist almost.
Yeah, kind of. And she, worked in gardens around the world. And, up until that point, I don't think I'd met someone who was kind of saw it in that way. Real... because, there's a wealth of history, and then there's it's like the art world, like saying you're a painter or saying you're a sculptor or something like that. There's just a massive history and things like that, and then you're kind of building upon a certain style or things like this, and there's patterns and
and that's, planting's another whole science. That's if I'm hand on heart perfectly honest, I'm not the strongest at planting. I'm pretty reasonable. I know a lot of species and what goes well and how things sort of are going to be better arranged, all that sort of stuff. But there's people who are very, very focused on planting, and that's kind of where they specialise, and that's really good to have. I think we've done a really good job. The team that I've worked with in the past few years with some of the planting in Christchurch. I think pre-earthquake it was very much red tussocks, silver tussocks, and carpet roses. And that was kind of the classic palette. And I think now driving along Cambridge Terrace and stuff for me is super rewarding when you see. The beautiful gowras that are in flower through summer, and then the tractor seats and then a lot of the native species as well, which are all sort of growing in together. And a lot of those are rain gardens, so they're actually helping filter water before they hit the aquifers. So a lot of that diversity that we're seeing in the planting palette around the city, I think, has been pretty cool. In the last few years.
That is awesome, and it does lift. Well, I noticed it does lift my psychology just a little bit walking through those areas. Oh,
it makes you feel much better. Yeah, definitely. Instead of just big blanket grey and boring, having a bit of diversity, some bees cruising around and some birds chirping. It's like, it's tapping into nature a wee bit, which is what we're all come from nature. So it's nice to tap into it. Yeah.
Sure, good. What are you going to have for breakfast there, Rob?
I'm going to go for a Pilgrim's Wee Buddy.
Okay, mate.
Can I do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Crack on to that.
Sounds good.
Cool. Cheers for coming in and filling us in on all of that, because...
No worries.
Yeah, we just sort of pass through the city and we're not perhaps 100% aware of the different spaces and what to look out for. But it's really enlightening.
Yeah, bit of a dark art, but...
Yeah, it's a total dark art. I was kind of wished I'd been here for the first half, so I could hear more about exactly what you're doing.
Yeah. No, it is.
I'll look at the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, cool. No, it's good. Thanks
What's
for having
that? Hey, I'm going to just ask one more question.
Yeah.
What's that thing? There's some blue... Is it blue spaces or something? Oh, that's water. That's people who get obsessed with water. That's right.
Ah, okay.
Incorporating water into... our environment.
Yeah, right.
More so.
Yep.
And saying that it has this, healing or just this kind of, magical property kind of thing. But I think, like Milton said,
Well, it's just got a natural quality, isn't it?
Yeah. I could go down another rabbit hole on that.
Yeah.
I won't. I know that's probably running out of time, but it's like
that's cool.
just
That's still
even like biophilic sort of design, the biophilic principles. I don't know if you've heard about that, but that's
No.
basically the whole idea of, at the end of the day, humans have come from nature. We rely on nature big time.
Yeah.
And I did some work at in a hospital project a few years ago, and that was fascinating. So working with people who had brain injuries and stroke, recovery, that sort of stuff, and the landscape is quite fundamental. There's scientific proof that even if you're in a ward and you've got a picture of the natural landscape on the wall, it'll increase your, you reduce your anxiety just by being able to be close to nature. So, having this, tapping into biophilic, the senses, the sensory sort of design, so the aroma of flowers or something that drifts through the windows, or being able to touch and feel different textures and things like that, it actually does have positive health benefits for humans, because it's kind of inherently where we've come from.
Yep.
And you sort of, in these urban environments, you often lose that. So being able to tap into those sort of sensory sort of experiences, and through design, and that's something that we always think about as well. Feeling the sun on your face, how good,
Exactly,
or, all those little things that might not be obvious.
Well, and I think so many people talk about getting into nature, and they do it on the weekends, but hey, why don't we have a little shaft of sunlight coming in?
Yeah. Get out and just...
but in everyday life, why should we just reserve it till the weekend?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's great to have a word for it. I've got a word for that now.
Well, so say it again.
Biophilic. Biophilic
Cool.
design principles. It's sort of... there's a whole sort of subject on it, but... it's just that idea of being able to tap into that sort of sensory.
So philic means attracted to, obviously.
And
philic.
Yeah, I don't know. Actually.
Yeah, it does. It
must
does.
be, and then bio,
and
obviously.
Bio.
Yep, biodiversity and all the rest of it.
So we're attracted to that.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't know why you like being in a space. You just do. And it's probably because you actually, this feels pretty good. I can.
Yeah, I mean, we were like apes or whatever not long ago, right? So, yeah.
There's a whole Joe Rogan podcast on that.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's why people have animals in some of those wards as well.
Yep. Yeah.
Fully. We just want that natural connection.
Yep.
No,
and
cool.
it's good to, it actually, gets turnover, gets people out of their beds and back out into their homes and stuff. And, if you can have that, that's got to be a positive thing for health as well. So it's pretty interesting stuff.
Maybe that's why the hospital's next to the Botanic Gardens in some respects. Maybe back in the day, someone thought, well, where were we going to chuck the hospital?
Yep. It's just a shame they didn't put in a few more windows in some of those rooms, though.
They didn't talk with the window person.
Yeah. Not enough glazing budget in that one,
You do realise if you popped a hole in the wall, you could actually see the garden.
But I know when you are in the hospital and something shitty's happening, you go for a walk in the park, obviously it's really good.
Yep. But there's nothing worse, I don't know about you guys, but the smell of a hospital, you walk in, you're like, oh, God, I hate being in this place. But if you can somehow counter that by, bringing in, some natural ventilation or something like that, that's got to be a good thing. So even those tiniest little things are quite important in the design of those sort of spaces, which is
that's why
pretty
people
fascinating.
bring in flowers, right? I just realised that component.
Yeah, for sure. Something natural,
Yeah.
Yep.
Like I can't in you, but now I understand a little bit more.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's quite an interesting whole topic, that one.
And that just lies in the general population, and everyone's kind of aware of it, but they don't perhaps fully.
So even in our workspaces, perhaps if we had something like that. I see people having little fountains and stuff now.
And a lot of greenery, house plants, things like that. It's just that little bit of a connection.
Yeah, so that's a fascinating topic.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
I guess you get the occasional people who are sort of biophobic.
Yeah, definitely. Just wants shiny and sterile.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, biophobic. I haven't heard that, but that's good.
Yeah. Well, you've got to accept them. And incorporate them in.
Well, they're just on the spectrum, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, they can have this little box in the park, and they can go in there. With a little grey box.
What are those self-deprivation? Sensory deprivation.
Sensory deprivation. Right. Maybe it's just a mirror that just reflects themselves back at themselves. And then,
like narcissists.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I love it. All right, I'll crack on with these.
Okay, mate.
I think we should probably end it there.
Cool, mate.
I appreciate that.
That's good. Nice one.
Cheers. Thanks
for having
me.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Cool.